why am I sending money to my father? All of a sudden it costs a lot of money. It took so long to receive the funds. We would pay super high fees.
Crypto is no more just an investment vehicle. It's like a way of life.
The whole market capitalization of the industry was $1 billion. So today it's 3.3 trillion.
Anton Golub is a high-frequency trader and crypto founder with a background in PhD level, computer science research. He built algorithmic trading systems, scaled a market-making firm during the early Bitcoin years, building FreedX, next-generation crypto exchange for both newcomers and professionals. He's here to break down how tokenized real estate is changing investment in Dubai, why most ICOs fall apart before they start, and how founders can raise money without relying on VCS.
UAE is the global leader for the crypto industry as well, but also for the tokenization of real-world assets. You and I can exchange an asset, a stablecoin or a crypto with very low fee. It comes immediately to you. It's in your wallet.
And I saw that you left traditional finance to jump into crypto.
And the Bitcoin is at $1 million, but also Karakti is 100 dirhams. It's not 1 dirham anymore.
So you're saying hold Bitcoin. 2 weeks back, I had Mohammed Al-Hakim here on the show, president of Crypto.com GCC, and he was actually talking to us about a debit card. He said you could use this debit card to pay everywhere in the world, from Dubai to London, and that's when it hit me. I realized that crypto is no more just an investment vehicle. It's like a way of life. Like you can actually use it for your transactions and life. It's the future of everyday spending. And before we get into it, guys, I want to say that a lot of you guys watch the show and don't hit the subscribe button. It would be really good for you to hit the subscribe button so I can continue to bring amazing guests. And more important, I want you guys, if you find value from this episode, I want you to share it with at least one person. And that way, someone who's thinking about building a business, someone who's doing a 9-to-5, currently in a job, thinking to leave and do his own business, can benefit from it. It might save them months of work. Today we have with us Anton. I was actually scrolling on my phone and looking at news, and I saw that you left traditional finance to jump into crypto. And you created a company, you provided liquidity, and from that, your journey has been super inspiring. I wanted to go back to you and understand, what was the hardest point in the beginning from moving from traditional finance to the world of crypto?
So first, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's really a pleasure. And also, hopefully the audience will enjoy this episode. And I mean, to tell you, so I was part of this group of individuals in the early days that built the Crypto Valley in Switzerland. So this was kind of these first few companies that kind of individuals that came about and had this big vision. Today, it's more of a reality than vision.
Oh, wow.
To build a new type of infrastructure, financial infrastructure, using blockchain technology and kind of Bitcoin being one of the key early use cases, And to tell you how I entered this and what was the biggest challenges. So I actually worked at a big hedge fund in Switzerland as a high frequency trader. So I was very young, and I was very happy that I got this opportunity. It's not easy to get into the hedge fund, especially as a trader. But at the hedge fund, I had a visionary boss, actually. So he was a person who was extremely smart. He was a visionary. His name was Richard Olson. And to explain what I mean by that, he was one of the first few people that built fintech companies in the 80s. So he built one of the most successful today foreign exchange trading platform, a liquidity provider called Wanda. And he was kind of always talking about the future, what's coming.
So Wanda in the 80s, and then he was talking about the future.
Yes. So he was, to illustrate that, for instance, when he started his first fintech company, Wanda, he was talking about how people will actually exchange currencies fully online and, with a click of a button, before internet even was a thing back then, So he was always a very, very, he understood very well kind of where the future, the reality is today in terms of infrastructure, where it's going. And I remember I joined the hedge fund and I'm so happy. I'm a trader, finally.
How old were you at the time?
When I joined, I was 24 years old. So it was very early age to be a trader at the hedge fund, really I was very happy. It was my goal.
And this was in which country?
I was in Switzerland.
Okay.
So I was living in UK, and then I got an opportunity to join Richard's hedge fund, and I did that. And I remember I joined, but all the time, my boss, imagine your boss is telling you, this is not the future. This is the past. Hedge funds, this high frequency trading, this is not the thing. And you're kind of listening, thinking, well, I just joined. I'm just very happy to do it. But then there was other thing he was talking all the time about, which was the blockchain and Bitcoin. And his kind of message to me the whole time was kind of, we understood how the foreign exchange markets work. So you had these banks, they're kind of all connected, they dominate and they control everything in the foreign exchange markets.
I want to interrupt you there for a second. All my trader friends say that their dream is to be a high frequency trader, and they talk about Jim Simmons and all these people that ace it in trading. So you're saying that's not the thing, and then you were doing that.
Yes, and to even tell you like the background context how I discovered high frequency trading. So I was at the university. I'm Croatian originally from Europe, and I was studying mathematics, and I was into pure theoretical mathematics. So this was my passion. And one day a person came to our university. Sometimes they bring in experts to present, and that person worked at Renaissance Technologies, which Jim Simmons founded, and he was a Croatian as well.
Wow.
And he was explaining what they do. And I remember, so I was very much into theory, and then I listened to this person talk, and after the presentation was over, I said, I want to do this. And
that's it.
And exactly, I said, I want to do this high frequency trading. I went over to that person. I said, I want to do this. How do I get a job here? And I remember his reply. He was saying, after we introduced each other, he said, Anton, just to let you know, this is extremely difficult. We get thousands and thousands of resumes for each job position. Very few get hired. So very unlikely you will become a high frequency trader in such a young age. So it was also for me understanding, okay, this is something very interesting. I would like to do that, but it's also very difficult to get.
And did you find that challenge push you wanting to do it more or less?
More, to be honest, really more. And many times, because when I finished my education and I went to work, I was not doing high frequency trading at the beginning. I was doing risk management, portfolio management, but always on the side, I was always reading about it. I was very curious. I was also learning how to code, because when you do theoretical mathematics, you don't really code, you write theorems and proofs.
Right,
yeah.
Yes.
So I was learning how to code on the side, because I was so willing to at least get an opportunity to become a high frequency trader. So for the first time when I met Richard, who was later on my boss.
How many years between the initial time?
So that person gave up. I specifically remember it was in summer of 2008 as the financial markets were collapsing,
Right.
Yeah, he was talking about high frequency trading. He kind of between the lines said that they're performing very well, despite that the markets were going down. This was very interesting for me. But that was my kind of first touch point, saying there's this world of high frequency trading. I really want to be a part of it.
And then you started learning about it. How long from then until you got the job at high frequency trading?
So it was a good 4 or 5 years, to be honest. And to be very honest with you, many times I tried. I was sending my resume. I was trying to meet the right people. I was explaining to them that I'm like this smart guy, and that's what I thought. And it was very difficult, to be honest. So what I was kind of told that it's difficult to enter into the high frequency trading space, especially in a hedge fund, it was proven to be the case. But I was just very persistent until I met Richard, and I remember I was very impressed with him. So I told him, if you ever are looking person to do anything, doesn't have to be, I can do anything you want. I can be your assistant. I said, if you ever need me, please call me. But I would really like to work with you. And
that's a nice thing to say, like loyalty, right?
Yes, yeah.
And devotion and perseverance.
Yes,
showing up. So
it was, but a luck as well. I think also luck. Maybe this is something that I personally believe, that somehow luck or being at the right place at the right time and persistent.
4 or 5 years of working on getting the job. I wouldn't say it's luck. I think maybe you're a little too hard on yourself, but great job. You got there. And then what was it that changed your mind then from high frequency trading and got you to think about becoming a liquidity provider, for example?
Yeah. So what really for me was the key decision why I decided to kind of venture into the crypto industry, and also with Richard together we created one of the first startups in Switzerland, was my relationship with Richard, actually. Because he is not my father, but I had this father-like relationship with him. So I was always inspired by him. I always thought that he has a very big vision behind him, what he wants to achieve. And I wanted to be a small part of it. And the way it worked out actually was that at one point Richard came. I still remember it. I was living in Geneva. He was in Zurich. So he kind of did a company-wide call, individually called people. And he said, Anton, I'm shutting down the hedge fund. This is not the future. This is not, this is not what we need to do in the future. And I remember sitting in Geneva, and just to explain to the audience, Geneva, it's like autumn, rainy Geneva. You don't see the sun for like 8 months. And I was thinking like, wow, this is a horrible start to the day. I'm getting fired, or, like there's some changes happening. And so he said, let's put the hedge fund, let's put this on the side. But Anton, I'm telling you all the time about this new thing called the blockchain. and Bitcoin, how it will change the world. So why don't you and I create a startup together just to see what will happen, you know? And when I told that to my father said, okay, do what you think is best. But he later told me he thought like we were completely crazy going from a hedge fund to some funny startup. But to be very honest, it was because of my personal relationship with Richard. I kind of trusted him.
Was the hedge fund doing good returns?
Hedge fund performed very well, actually. So it was a market neutral hedge fund in a sense that we were trying to achieve returns independent on where the foreign exchange market was going. So we were trading.
It was making money.
It was making good money. It was not at the likes of this famous Renaissance technologies, by far not, but it was good returns. So for instance, between 10 to 15% with low volatility. So
low volatility being the key.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a sharp ratio.
Yeah, so that was the value proposition that you invest and you get.
So for him and you to buy into this concept of blockchain and to leave something that's making money, what is that vision then that you saw?
Yeah, so it was one key thing that he was educating me while we were still at the hedge fund is how the financial markets actually work. Like what's happening behind the scenes. And this is what actually I saw it as well because I was a trader. You have these banks, they're all connected to each other. They actually control the foreign exchange markets. You always trade against them. In the foreign exchange market, even today, there is no concept of really an exchange. You have something called EBS, which is kind of like an exchange, but it's smaller by volume than if you trade directly against the banks. And I kind of saw that they were controlling everything. And also I didn't like this concept of what I saw happening in my day-to-day life when I was sending money to my father. So my father, he would want to go hiking in Croatia, has like nice place to hike. Yeah, so it was very nice. And he would tell me, Anton, can you send me, like to support the family, can you send, as an example, 500 Swiss francs, can you send it to me? Because I want to go hiking in 1 hour, I will need to cover some expenses. Right. And I would do that. And then first thing is like, we would pay super high fees to do that. And then I was like, but wait a second, I work in the hedge fund industry, in the foreign exchange markets, but there, if you're a hedge fund, your fees are actually zero, close to zero. That's how the specific reasons, close to zero. Why am I sending money to my father? All of a sudden, it costs a lot of money.
And passing like 7 banks.
Exactly. And then another thing is it took so long to receive the funds. And again, I was thinking, but this doesn't work when you're a hedge fund. And I even remember my father, many times he would go, I would write him like in an email, I have sent you 500 francs. And my father being my father, he would get up, go to the bank, and he would say, where is the 500 francs? And they would say, and then they would say, yeah, but it takes 3 days.
Playing ping pong between the banks.
Exactly. and each time taking fees,
Exactly.
Yes, yeah. So, and then I saw, when I saw how this foreign exchange markets was working, and then I actually then started learning how the blockchain works. That this is this global decentralized infrastructure for finance, right, where you and I can exchange an asset, a stable coin or a crypto with very low fee. It comes immediately to you. It's in your wallet. The fees are transparent. The fees are clear. And there is this new world that's being formed back in the early days. And then we always understood it as this big global settlement system that's more efficient than what we have in the foreign exchange markets. And it was kind of the early days in the crypto where we thought, okay, maybe this is a big thing one day.
And how many years ago was this?
That was in 2013. So I remember it. We started, the company was incorporated in May 2013, called Lika, which in all Scandinavian languages mean happiness. So being lucky or happy. And the vision to build that company was to build like an exchange, like a marketplace there. So that was prior to later on when I launched a market making company. Yeah. And so this was really the early days. And I like to illustrate what it also means to start kind of early on. So back in 2013, when we launched, the whole market capitalization of the crypto industry, if you look at the coins, and back then, today, the only one who survived is Bitcoin. All of these other ones are gone.
All the other ones gone.
All of the other ones go. So it was pre-Ethereum, pre-Solana, pre all of this. And the whole market capitalization of the industry was $1 billion. So today it's 3.3 trillion.
$1 billion? It
was 1 billion. So back then, even CoinMarketCap, this website that we checked, it existed back then as well. So if you went on CoinMarketCap and if you looked, this one column that says total amount, it was 1 billion approximately, And it just shows like how early it was. It also maybe shows that we were very early. It was objectively actually very high risk to do that. But I had personally a lot of trust into Richard. It was like a father telling you, hey, let's go do something, and you difficult
Yeah.
to say no.
There's an emotional part, not just strategic and
Exactly.
logical, right? There's also, who wants to disappoint the person they look up to,
Exactly.
especially when they ask them.
Yes, and I also felt like it was an honor because I was very young.
Yeah.
Richard is a lot taller than me, so when he said, "Hey, why don't we try to do it?"
So this startup, then tell us about it. You launched it.
Yeah, so we launched it. There was nothing, so we were trying to build. And usually I tell these interesting stories because we launched, and then a few months later, Bitcoin had this huge run up when it went from less than $100 to $1,000. It was a big deal back then. But what happened back then, which you asked me about the big challenge at the beginning, the biggest crypto exchange on the planet back then, called Mt. Gox, exploded.
Yes, I remember that.
You remember, yeah. And imagine now we are trying to build a startup. You need to raise money. We're trying to convince people. And I remember, so Mt. Gox exploded the end of 2014, beginning of 2014. When we went to present the vision, the company, and everything, first two questions were, Anton, what happened with Mt. Gox? Secondly, Anton, what is Silk Road? So Mt. Gox, we said what it is. Silk Road was an unfortunate marketplace for illicit things where they used Bitcoin as a payment mechanism. Today, the founder, Ross Ulbricht, is actually free, but he was in jail because of that for many reasons, actually. But the biggest challenge at the beginning was how do you even show legitimacy in what we're trying to do?
When the biggest exchange flops, and also, there's Silk Road, right? So that was the hardest moment. And then how did you overcome it? Like, how do you answer this and then get someone to actually believe in what you're doing?
So the one approach we took was to be very transparent about what happened there. So what that meant in practice was back then people were still writing business plans rather than these short pitch decks. In the business plan, a huge part of it, around 20 pages, was explaining what happened with Mt. Gox and explaining what is Silk Road. Because we said, how do you go against this? Let's just be fully transparent and say, this is what's happening. And on the other side, what was really key for us, we really made sure that we are doing everything in line with the current regulation in Switzerland. So that means everything we had to do, we had many meetings with our kind regulator back then, FINMA, to explain what's the vision behind this exchange, behind this marketplace, and always asking them, this is the approach we are willing to take. Are you fine with that? Because back then there was no regulation, no laws.
Right.
Are you fine with that?
Work with the regulator.
Work with it. So I think that was the key, full transparency, and then working with the regulator, which meant it was also slower than expected, but full transparency. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So I want to, I think the other day I was sitting down and I opened my LinkedIn and I saw something really interesting. I saw that the Dubai, some company actually tokenized the tower, and they had how you have an ICO, you have here a token sale for the tower, and they sold it out in less than 48 hours. I think the company was Pripco right?
Yes.
And what do you think about real world assets? And do you think, how does this go along with what your vision is today for the future? Where do you see this going?
Yeah. So just to say, and to complement now, UAE is the global leader at the moment, I think, for the crypto industry as well, crypto regulation, but also for the tokenization of real world assets. So tokenization is this big narrative, big vision that everything of value will one day be on the blockchain in a form of a token, legally recognized by the authorities, but that everything will be on the blockchain. It won't be in this or the balance sheets of the banks. It won't be in this specific ledgers, but it will be on the blockchain. And we will have the benefits of the blockchains, efficiency, speed, security, low costs. But that's the vision that will happen, And for many years, people have tried to do tokenization, have tried very hard. And they didn't work for many different reasons. And UAE, in this particular context, it's Dubai and the Dubai Land Department, they did something amazing, is that they actually tokenized the title deed. And the title deed for that particular property is on the blockchain. So it's not somehow that this token represents something, but actually you have to go somewhere else. No, this title deed is on the blockchain.
But the title deed's owned by Pripco.
Title deed, Primco was the distribution platform. So the property was sold through Primco. The Dubai Land Department gave the nod saying, yes, you can do that. This is very important, that somebody with trust
Okay, so my question next
Yeah.
is, if different people own different parts of that, how did the land department collect their 4% on each transaction?
So this is actually also very important. So they had also a platform as well, done by a company called Control Alt. They're the software provider, and they actually then, together with the Dubai Land Department, created this token. So they actually fractionalized the property, and then each person could buy one fraction, for instance. And then in the background, it's the Dubai Land Department and this software platform. They actually see who owns which piece of the land. They also make sure that each person pays its own fair share of the fees to the
So on each transaction, 4% still needs to be taken.
in this case, to make it very attractive, they have half the fees.
Okay.
So it's 2%, and still you have to make that 2% fee. And the platform actually makes sure that this actually ends up with the right counterparty.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, but still, I need to make at least a 2% gain before I do a trade.
Yes.
Otherwise, it eats into my capital.
Absolutely. So there has to be a appreciation of the property or some rent, actually, for instance.
And like, what do you see? Do you see the future all going to be like tokenized? Like, am I going to have one day an app where I have like 2%, like instead of having one property in Dubai, could I have like 5% of, a property in Dubai, 5% of my portfolio is a property in the UK, in London? Do you think the whole world is going towards?
I think one day in the future, once we have enough trust into these systems and we have the authorities and the governmental bodies aligning with it, I think in the future, all of your assets will be on the blockchain. You might own small fractions, 2% of some real estate. You might own 5% of some art, maybe 2% of some gold mine. So I think that this fractionalization, everything will be on the blockchain. You will get the benefits of the blockchain technology in the future.
Very interesting you say that. Yeah. So you said that you think that Dubai is leading the race at this.
Yeah.
Tell us, how is Dubai leading the race at this, and why? Like, I knew a company in Denmark that was doing tokenization, and they did a property there. So why do you say Dubai start later and they would lead it?
So, I think first point was that this is just my understanding, is that the big success for UAE was that blockchain technology is part of the strategic vision of the leadership. This is really key, that you have alignment, that this technology is the future, and that we as a country want to benefit from the technology. I think this is the key, that there's
So it's not about the achievement, it's about the strategy.
Yes. And once you have, I think in my opinion, once you have this big strategic alignment on the leadership level, then you have execution. And then Dubai did, and UAE, but in this particular case for real estate, Dubai did an amazing achievement, which is very important for the blockchain crypto industry, is that for the first time ever, this token that you have on the blockchain is the actual ownership of the real world assets. And now, in just 2 sentences to explain, before it was not the case. So today, in many countries except in the UAE, the way the tokenization works is that you first actually create a fund. That fund buys, for instance, the property, and then you tokenize the fund. But then everybody will say, but why are we doing this again, process in between? And it was this process that I just described was a big criticism from the crypto industry for many years, because we said, you're not actually doing anything useful here.
You're tokenizing a fund.
Exactly.
So there's no real ownership.
Exactly.
The fund people, they own, the fund can still cheat them out of their money, or something could go wrong, right? They don't own the title deed like in Dubai.
Exactly. And then many times people would say, but why am I then buying the token? I can just buy directly the fund. What was the benefit actually?
Exactly. More fees.
More fees. You said it perfectly, it was more fees. And this was the amazing achievement that happened here in the UAE. And that's why I say, but I think many people will agree with me, UAE is the leader, because the first time in history, the token that represents the title deed is the title deed. It's not that it's somewhere else somehow, and this is a token where we're not really sure what it represents.
Interesting. Anton, look, you seem to be an expert on the world of crypto. You left like a fund, and when I look at business, I think that business is always about raising capital. And I see a lot of traditional businesses, and I wonder, is there a way for a traditional business to raise money using an ICO? And how would those tokenomics work? If I have, for example, a restaurant, and now I need some marketing money, or I want expansion, instead of just using franchising, could I do an ICO, for example, or a laundry or even start a business from zero. Take us to the world of ICOs and tell us, how does one look at an ICO and how does it solve for him the funding gap?
Yeah. So ICOs, when they started in the early days like this, 2016, 2017, they were a big success story by the amount of funds being raised. But then the question is like, what do you get in that ICO? And then these are this funny thing called utility tokens, which nobody really knows what it represents. But these utility tokens that were what you got when you participated in ICO, they didn't actually represent ownership in the business. Now, in what you are actually perfectly describing is you want to actually create tokens that represent ownership in that business potentially, and then people can buy into those tokens and support you to actually to raise capital. This is a big goal for your company.
Wait, and if SMEs come last and first comes big companies, and big companies are already listed on the exchange, then doesn't it mean that the regulator needs, or the big company needs to lead the initiative first to tokenize their existing shares?
Yes, exactly.
And then it will trickle down to the SMEs, where you have someone who now wants to go and instead of listing on the stock market, he can just, maybe it'll be a deal with the stock market where you can just go list your tokens, and someone can come by and exchange it with each other.
Yeah, you said it perfectly today. To do a fundraiser as an SME and get listed on a stock exchange, this is a very long process, very costly process. And the vision behind the blockchain would be actually that you can create tokens that represent shares of your company, and then people can buy into those companies, and maybe the shares can be even traded on the blockchain.
You know what's the biggest thing? Look, I sit with, I have UAE national friends. We like to enjoy the good weather. Sometimes we sit when the weather is good in farms, and sometimes it's in the desert. Right. And usually the question they come to me with is, how do we create a place where we can invest in businesses? And the biggest problem that I see in answering this question is, how do you provide clarity? Where's the platform with clarity and ownership? So the blockchain, to me, sounds like it could be a place where I could actually, if I'm buying a block on the blockchain and ownership, everyone has clarity, then there's no question about who owns.
Absolutely. This is the key aspect, is to have trust. And I think there it's very key that we have then the right authorities aligned with that. For instance, in the case of the property was the Dubai Land Department. I think for shares it would be ESCA, the Securities and Commodities Authority. So I think it will be key to get aligned there, that this is actually, that they are aligned with that, in a sense that shares on the blockchain is shares as with your bank or your broker.
Yeah, the way I see it is about getting smaller blocks and smaller companies, because not everyone wants to invest only in the A companies.
Yes, exactly.
And the same way, the C companies actually need funding. The B companies also need funding. So I kind of see, if the world of crypto is going to get more adoption, I definitely see this as being probably like from a very business, there are people using crypto more, so their money will be there. And then what if they just transfer the thing here to own?
Yes. And also to enjoy good returns. So if you would invest into an SME or maybe an early stage company.
Exactly. The growth is much higher, right? Exactly. Higher risk, higher reward.
Yes, exactly. And also just to emphasize to the audience, so when I was building the companies that I founded, I also had to do fundraising. And over the course of my career, I raised substantial amount of money. And I remember this process. So you would finally agree. I mean, you know that process as well. You finally agree with the investor, the term sheet is signed. And then, even the shareholder agreement, you align how you're going to execute it. And then the lawyers come with their work, and then it takes for so long. And there's this thing called the notary. And then you're waiting. And then the bill at the end comes, and you're like, why did we spend here tens of thousands of dollars?
You raised money, and most of it goes there, and it comes super late, the money.
Yes.
So tell me, how would, if you now have a company, you need to raise money for it, how would you structure it and raise money for it? Because a lot of people watching this are entrepreneurs or people doing a 9-to-5, and they actually want to tap into your experience and understand what is the fastest way and the best way to raise money for a company.
Yeah. So today we're in a good position, actually, that we have actually professional investors or venture capital firms that actually their mandate is to invest into early stage companies that have a good promise and so on. So from my experience raising capital, it's a very long and painful process, meaning you have to approach many investors until you find a few of them that are interested in your business case, that would then do due diligence on you as a business, why they would be interested in investing. And as well, I think the key goal is when you're fundraising, you need to find something called a lead investor. So who is going to be the one who is going to say, I really believe in this business, I really believe in this team, and I'm going to be the one who leads the process. And then kind of, I mentioned like almost like putting ships or herd together, where you have to kind of get few other investors aligned. And then the lead investor says, I will do the main due diligence. I will lead the main negotiations with the founders, with the rest of the shareholders. I will then set the terms. I will put the most capital as well into this financing round. And, I'm then going to try to get a few more
Biggest
investors. Biggest believer, actually, yeah.
Tell me, how did you one time use this, and how did you overcome the biggest challenge? Because for most people, this is the biggest challenge, doing a business.
Yeah, so I mean, fundraising. I was always raising in this kind of early stage. So I never did an IPO, but I was doing fundraising, this like seed, Series A, and a bit later. And to be honest, when I'm in the very early stage of fundraising, what I learned is that the business case has to kind of make sense, but the biggest reason why professional investors invest is because they believe in the team. They look at us as a group, as a team, and say, can these people execute? Can they change when they need to change? Can they completely pivot if you
change when you need to change,
yes,
and pivot? These are the most, if someone's too stuck and they're failing and they're not willing to take data and learn.
Exactly, yes, yeah. And I think like in the early days, it's all about really assessing, is it the team we believe in? Knowing that it could be the case that the team doesn't make it. This also happens, right? But do we believe that this team can take it then to the next phase, to the next phase of the
what
business?
is that non-negotiable that you have to see in the founder for you to understand if you were going to make a bet on someone?
If I would kind of have to reflect, I would say that the biggest feature added value in your personality would be resilience. I mean, know this as well. Launching an early stage business, everything that you think can go wrong will most likely go wrong and even more. So really never stopping. When you face a challenge, you say, okay, let's try another way. Let me be very persistent. Let me be very resilient, overcome, facing these challenges and doing my best that I move forward. So I would say in the early days is actually most is resilience and persistence, but also to be honest, later on when you have a business case, when you're having revenues, then investors become more quantitatively oriented. So they look at how you're scaling, what are your revenues, how does a unit economic look like, how does the margins look like, how can they imagine doing an exit in one day, and then it does Series A stage, let's say, they become more quantitative. So you kind of have proven that you can overcome these few hurdles at the beginning, but you can make money and then they can take it forward, hopefully.
Amazing. Since you're working in the world of crypto and there's a lot of different companies that you set up or were part of the setup team, what is the kind of difficulty that you usually face with a regulator, and what's the best way around it?
So approaching the regulator is actually a very good thing because you're trying to provide clarity, have rules, so you can know how you can do your business. Now, to complement again, the regulatory authorities here in the UAE, they're very open. That means is that you can approach them and say, hey, I have this business case, I have this idea. How can I do this? And can you give me guidance? How do I execute on my business? And to be honest, but this is as well the case, for instance, for Switzerland. I really want to be honest as well, but I think in UAE is the best. And they're very open to a discussion, and they're very open to providing you with the framework and guidance how to do your business.
So if someone wanted to actually launch a business today, would you advise them to use an ICO to raise money or the traditional method?
Wow, that's a very good question. So to be very honest, because ICO or fundraising through the blockchain brings its own challenges because the infrastructure is still new. Most of the investors, let's say VCs, they actually are maybe not so skilled with wallets, with tokens, with funding, with managing these tokens, understanding how this new space works. So my recommendation would be, unless you have investors who are really skillful in blockchain, I would recommend raising still from traditional ones, because maybe this will be maybe you can later on introduce them to this new technology, and then maybe they do a follow-up round with you using the blockchain technology. But I just was...
So for now, we're still at the...
Yeah. When you were asking me the question, I was just reflecting a lot. Wow, what would if I would have to go in the past and tell I think for many of them, because, for instance, maybe you have a family office who really believes in you, wants to invest. you know them very well. They know them very well. Imagine, and then I would come to them and say, yeah, there is this thing called the wallet. And they would say, I have a prime broker. I have worked with these banks. Now you're telling me wallets.
Yeah,
you know?
like,
And then I might also tell them, well, don't lose the token, because if you lose them, then you lose the shit. I mean, it would be a challenge, to be honest. Yeah.
you know, I watched the All In podcast that has them, and I remember feeling, you know, is crypto gonna go up or not go up? And I get a video from him that says crypto is going to 500K in 2025. You know, I know we have a few months left for the year, but that makes me think to ask, you know, the same question to you. Like, what do you think about what he said? And do you think that this is, you know, a realistic expectation?
Yeah. So I think that saying by the end of the year it will hit 500,000, this is very ambitious, let's say it like that. Because we just have to kind of understand it. If it goes from 100,000, where we are approximately, to 500,000, this is a 5x increase within a very short time period. Even historically, Bitcoin has rarely had such situation where it had such a huge run-up. It only happened in 2014 and 17 when it had this big price increases, 10x almost within a couple of months. I think that long-term, maybe to give a bit more substance to my answer, I think long-term Bitcoin will end up even at $1 million. I think the question is just like, how do we end up there? Do we get there over time with ups and downs and kind of let's say in 5 to 10 years, we end up there? Or do we just wake up one day and something happens and the Bitcoin is at $1 million, but also Karakti is 100 dirhams, it's not 1 dirham anymore.
Oh.
So do we have such a dislocation in the monetary system?
You know, Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, said something negative about fiat not too long ago. I saw it on my Twitter like a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So if the richest guy in the world is talking bad about, you know, fiat,
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't be surprised in any of those two situations you gave, because usually the rich people, they direct also perception and, you know, they have influence.
Yes, I think I agree with you 100%. And I think that Elon Musk said that he feels that fiat is hopeless.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but
sorry, we can cut it later. I think Elon Musk said he doesn't have so much faith, let's say it like that, in fiat. And I think maybe this comes from the experience what's happening in the US in the sense of debt that US is accumulating. I mean, at the pace that has never been seen in history, in a sense that I think that I know that this year they have to refinance many trillions, and they have plans to increase the debt by also many trillions. So any of the two scenarios could happen.
the printer
It's doing brr.
it's broken.
It's broken. Doing too much. Yeah.
All right. I actually read a LinkedIn post you put out. I was on my LinkedIn a couple of days ago doing research before this podcast, and I saw you had something about Michael Saylor's strategy. Yeah. So can you share with us and tell us what your view is on Michael Saylor's strategy? Because look, I own, just complete disclaimer, I own a few shares in MicroStrategy, so I just want to put it out there, and I wanted to know.
Yeah. So originally I was very impressed with what Michael Saylor is doing, because just in one sentence, what he's doing, he's borrowing dollars. So that means you shorted the dollar, you bet against the dollar, and then you buy Bitcoin, which you think is going to go up long term. Initially, I thought it was a brilliant concept, brilliant idea. But then what happened actually within the last couple of months, Michael Saylor has started, it's just a product. He's promising high yield to investors who buy into his products. I know that Bitcoin doesn't offer you any yield. It can go up in price or down in price, but it doesn't generate any yield in a normal environment. And when I saw this, immediately, I didn't understand it at the beginning, but then I watched this podcast. The overall message is that this is not sustainable. You cannot promise high yield on an asset that intrinsically doesn't have yield.
But I remember seeing on Binance that you could stake your Bitcoin.
When you, in this particular case, when you stake Bitcoin on your exchanges, usually what exchanges do is they loan out your Bitcoin, and because then they're loan it out, then you take that risk, and then they compensate you with this yield. The thing is, strategy is not loaning out that Bitcoins; it's just sitting in custody.
With MicroStrategy, it's just sitting in there, and they're going to pay a return. So it's almost like a Ponzi scheme then.
I'm very vocal about this. I believe it has the characteristics of a Ponzi scheme, and that's the big shift in my mindset. I mean, a year ago, I was saying, this is a brilliant concept what Michael Saylor is doing. You know, the currency is getting debased. He's buying a hard asset that long-term, I think, will perform.
Exactly. Because you said before, you know, if Elon Musk, what he's saying is direction, and you're saying it can either happen in one day or over time, but you believe in it.
Yes.
But you're saying MicroStrategy's way of promising returns from an asset that doesn't produce returns actually doesn't make sense, because you'd have to sell the asset at some point. And in traditional terms, away from crypto, what this is classified as is a little bit different, right? Like,
yes.
You get new money to pay other people out. That's I think they want to own the asset. So for me, that's an interesting point. I'm definitely going to look into it. So you're saying hold Bitcoin rather than strategies, any kind of company that promises, returns on these coins.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, not giving financial advice, but I would always, if people want to get exposure to Bitcoin, my recommendation would be buy Bitcoin and maybe less focus on these derivative products with high yield where we don't understand where the yield is coming from.
Anton, now we're going to jump into the rapid fire round.
Yeah.
Ask you a few questions. You can answer in one word or one sentence. And if you feel you need to go overboard, you can.
Okay.
All right. What's the first crypto you ever bought?
Bitcoin.
What's the top hack for beating FOMO?
Long-term thinking.
What's one underrated tool that every startup needs?
Today, AI. 100% AI.
Which tool? You have to choose one.
I would propose ChatGPT personally because I like it. So 100% use ChatGPT.
Where's your favorite spot in Dubai to brainstorm?
Can I mention where is it? Yeah. So I really like a restaurant at the beginning of Sheikh Zayed Road called Cello. So they have a very, very nice food, very relaxed environment. And I would recommend Cello. But it's a restaurant, so if you go there, just be prepared. It has a bit of noise, yeah.
Okay, great stuff. So what's a book or a podcast that changed your thinking recently?
I apologize. I don't remember the exact name of the podcast, but it is a podcast that I watched that talked about what actually is Michael Saylor doing with strategy. And since I watched that, I really changed my opinion about strategy. And I think the overall long-term strategy will be very bad for the crypto industry.
Final question. You're a very big big personality on LinkedIn. You got 50,000 plus followers. I know you've spoken about on other podcasts about how you got them and stuff, but I just want to ask you a question. What is your most used emoji on LinkedIn?
Most used emoji on LinkedIn for me is the one that's crying in laughing, I don't know if it's good for LinkedIn, but it is what it is. That's my personality.
Anton, you shared some razor sharp insights. There are people sometimes they watch the show, they get all the way to the end, and they still don't hit the subscribe button. What's your final words for them? So subscribe to the amazing podcast that you have. Really want to compliment you. I watched your podcast and several of the episodes. It's really amazing what you're doing, and I'm humbled as well that you invited me. And thank you.
Really a pleasure, Thank you very much.
Pleasure is all mine. And for the viewers, I hope they enjoyed this one.